Nintendo released a special presentation for Splatoon Raiders, and in this presentation, it showed the structure of the game much more clearly. This time, there is something a little different from the classic Splatoon multiplayer competition. Splatoon Raiders appears as a new Splatoon adventure set on a mysterious archipelago called the Spiralite Islands, built around treasure hunting, combat, exploration, loot collection, and upgrade systems. At the center of the story is the Deep Cut team. This trio, consisting of Shiver, Fry, and Big Man, sets off for the Spiralite Islands in search of treasure. However, as they approach the island, a sudden light appears, and the team is forced to make an emergency landing. In this adventure, the player takes on the role of Deep Cut's pilot and also their mechanic. So this time, we enter the game not directly as a classic warrior, but as a mechanic hired by Deep Cut because of their skills. The Spiralite Islands are a mysterious place covered in fog. The terrain and environment change from island to island. Some areas are made up of more open spaces, while other places feature more enclosed and dangerous structures. The exploration bot, operated by one of the Deep Cut members, can detect the locations of treasure. However, the problem is that aggressive creatures called Salmonids have gathered around these treasures. If you want to get close to the treasure, you have to fight these creatures. The core gameplay loop of the game begins here. You land on an island, fight Salmonids, collect treasure and different items, then become stronger with the resources you earn. In short, Splatoon Raiders is not just about painting the environment. Here, there is a structure based on collecting loot, fighting waves of enemies, upgrading equipment, and heading into the next raid more prepared. The presentation especially focused on the Salmonid types. All of these creatures are generally called Salmonids, but they are divided into different types among themselves. First, there are the smaller types called lesser Salmonids. Some of them carry items such as spoons, frying pans, or tongs. Some bounce on springs, while others come directly at you and explode. They may not look like a major threat on their own, but when they come in hordes, they can make things seriously difficult. Besides that, there are also stronger enemies called boss Salmonids. For example, the Scrapper is an enemy that faces the player directly and has its front side well protected. To take it down, you first need to stun it with ink, then move behind it and attack. So there is no simply shooting your way through every enemy. Against some of them, you need to use the right tactic. Other boss types were also shown in the presentation. Salty Tongue was introduced as an extremely durable enemy that can deal high damage. Salivator can fly through the air and create whirlwinds. Smoker produces smoke to protect its allies. So on the Salmonid side, there is not just a crowded swarm of enemies, there are also more dangerous types with different behaviors and attack patterns. When you defeat boss Salmonids, they can drop Mega Power Eggs. Normal Power Eggs serve as energy for the exploration bot to dig for treasure. A Mega Power Egg, on the other hand, is worth 100 Normal Power Eggs. That is why taking down boss enemies is important not only for making progress, but also for reaching the treasure. Stronger Salmonid types were also shown in the presentation. One of these more dangerous enemies, referred to as seasoned Salmonids, is the Minced Scrapper. This enemy has sturdy armor and comes with a threatening roller-like attack. In addition, even stronger types such as Thick Cut Salty Tongue and Big Stack Stinger were also introduced. Thick Cut Salty Tongue can unleash a massive beam attack. Big Stack Stinger, on the other hand, targets the player with 3 lasers. An interesting detail pointed out by the research team is that these powerful Salmonids appear to be covered in salt. The presentation does not give a clear explanation for this, but it shares an observation suggesting that the saltier a Salmonid is, the stronger it may be. This also shows that Salmonid variety in the Spiralite Islands will play an important role in the game. There are more than 100 weapons to choose from in Splatoon Raiders. Sometimes, when Salmonids are defeated, they can drop weapons, so you do not always know in advance which weapon you will find. This gives the game a loot-focused structure. When you want to change your weapons, you can return to the Hideout Ship. Weapons also have levels. As the level increases, the weapon's power also increases. In addition, rare weapons with special powers can also be found. That is why players are expected to try different weapons and find the ones that suit their own style. However, combat in Splatoon Raiders is not limited to weapons alone. The presentation also introduced special devices called gadgets. These gadgets are pieces of equipment that give the player a big advantage while fighting Salmonids. You can equip 2 gadgets at the same time, and they are attached to the tank you are using. There are 3 different tank types in the game: Speed Tank, Power Tank, and Tactical Tank. Which gadgets you can use changes depending on the tank you choose. This also adds a side of creating builds and defining your playstyle to the game. One of the gadgets shown for the Speed Tank is Blast Boot. With this gadget, the player can leap forward at high speed and perform a stomp attack. It can also be used to quickly escape. Dash Ball launches the player forward by using the explosion from a bomb and also allows movement in different directions. Boomerang, on the other hand, is an attack tool that is thrown at enemies, stays in the air for a while, and then returns to the player. On the Power Tank side, Splatch It was shown. This gadget performs a quick slash attack in a wide arc and can be effective against strong shields. Splatty attacks enemies with discs that orbit around the player and coats the ground with ink. Spin Wheel spins and sprays ink while moving, pushes back Salmonids that come into contact with it, and can lock on to boss Salmonids. One of the gadgets introduced for the Tactical Tank is Shot Pot. When placed, it automatically attacks enemies. Bomb blooms create an explosion when they are linked together and fired at. The more they are chained, the bigger the explosion becomes. Tether Whale, after being placed, connects to your tank with a powerful laser, and all Salmonids that come into contact with the laser take damage. The real depth of the gadget system appears on the customization side. Parts called gadget parts are used to upgrade gadgets. For example, different parts such as delivery damage up, horizontal area up, stop duration up, multi-ranging, and mega power egg collection were shown for Boomerang. You need gadget part slots to equip these parts. As long as you have enough slots, you can combine different parts and create your own gadget setup. The raid structure is also built around different types of missions and areas. In some places, you need to collect plenty of power eggs in wide open areas and dig for treasure. Some areas are made up of dens overflowing with Salmonids. Some strange facilities force the player to use specific gadgets. In some ruins, you need to dig even deeper underground. So it is clearly shown that every raid will not progress in the same way, and that there will be different challenges across the Spiralite Islands. When you fail, the game also does not have a completely punishing structure. Even if a raid does not go as planned, you can keep the experience points, weapons, items, and similar things you earned. As you gain experience, you level up and become stronger. So even if you lose, the feeling of progression continues. The Hideout Ship seems to be the center of this progression system. With the loot you obtain from treasure hunts, you can add different facilities to the ship. For example, thanks to the Mechanic Shack, you can upgrade your tank and increase stats such as damage and HP. Tanks also become stronger as you use them, and as you progress, they can become able to equip 3 gadgets. This shows that systems that seem limited at first expand over time. Deep Cut members also have different roles on the Hideout Ship. Shiver helps you craft new gadgets in the Gadget Workshop. Fry comes into play in the Weapon Stash section, helping with upgrading weapons or turning them into materials. Big Man can catalog information obtained from treasure hunts. That is why Deep Cut is not just a team that appears in the story, but also takes part in different pieces of the progression system. Outfits were also shown in the presentation. As you progress through the islands, you can obtain outfits with different designs. When Amiibo figures from the Splatoon series are scanned, outfits with special designs can be obtained. When the new Splatoon Raiders Amiibo figures are scanned, it is stated that outfits inspired by each character are unlocked. Appearance has always been important for Splatoon, and that side is preserved in Raiders as well. There are also difficulty options. The game's difficulty can be changed at any time. The point especially mentioned in the presentation is this: when the difficulty changes, only the strength of the Salmonids changes, while the loot you obtain does not change. In other words, players who play on an easier difficulty are not punished in terms of loot. This makes the game more accessible. Although Splatoon Raiders is introduced as a single-player focused adventure, it also has multiplayer support. Up to 4 players can play together via local wireless or online play. You can team up with your friends or create a room with an optional password. This makes it possible to go treasure hunting as a group. There is also a help system called the Help feature for those playing alone. While playing solo, you can call for help, and an online player can come in for a short time and support you. However, if you finish a raid after using Call for Help, you cannot use this feature again for a while. That is why it needs to be used during truly difficult moments. If you answer another player's call for help, you can earn in-game rewards. Finally, the presentation mentions special treasures called Salmonid Relics. These relics are scattered throughout the Spiralite Islands. Some seem to contain strange powers, while others can reward you with a large amount of money. It looks like the Deep Cut team does not really intend to leave the island before finding these treasures. The main thing I'm curious about is this. What do you think of Splatoon Raiders' structure? Because here, Nintendo is moving a little away from the classic competitive Splatoon formula and trying a different kind of adventure with treasure hunting, a raid system, loot collection, gadget customization, and co-op support. For some players, this could be a breath of fresh air for the series, while for others, it may make them say, I actually want the classic Splatoon pace. Do you think the single-player focused structure especially suits the Splatoon universe? Or would you have preferred Nintendo to focus directly on Splatoon 4? The co-op side is also important. The idea of going treasure hunting with friends for up to 4 players sounds fun, but do you think this system will keep the game playable for a long time? Or will it become repetitive after a few raids? Write your thoughts in the comments.